Thank you. Thank you very much. Yep.
I'm very excited to be a moderator for today's session, and I'm very excited to see what these three companies today are doing to disrupt the music industry. And I'm excited because a lot of this is happening right here in Connecticut and in Southern New England. So today's session, we're going to learn a little bit more about these three companies, learn about what they do, talk about some of the trends shaping the music industry, and then also talk about the COVID-19 impact on the industry, and in particular, the impact COVID-19 has had on these three companies. We'll talk a little bit more about building teams through the pandemic and talk a little bit about raising capital. So the format of this webinar is about a 45 to 50 minute panelist discussion, followed by a 10 to 15 minutes audience Q&A. And just a reminder, as Gergana mentioned, any questions, please submit them through the Q&A chat box or Q&A and chat box below, and we'll be sure to get to as many as possible during that portion of the webinar. So with that, I'd like to introduce our three panelists today. I'm pleased to be joined by Gary McKeekian, co-founder and CEO at M&M Media Inc., also known as Treble; Fran Rogers, co-founder and CEO at Sparrow Live; and Nick Cianfioni, founder and CEO at Artist Republic. And if I apologize if I pronounced any of those names incorrectly, but I think I got them. So with that, I'd like to just ask our three panelists to share a little bit more about themselves and a little bit more about their companies. So Gary, let's start with you.
Thank you, Craig. Gary McKeekian, you actually did a very good job of pronouncing my very difficult to pronounce last name. I'm the co-founder CEO of M&M Media. We are known as Treble Music. We are a 4.5, 5-year-old company. And we started the company with the premise that, passion music was going to become, especially for the masses, was going to become in very, very high demand as people migrated from, iTunes or CD music consumption to digital music consumption. And happy to talk about it in more detail as we go around the other panelists.
Great, thanks, Gary. And I'm pleased to be joined by Fran Rogers. Fran, would you like to share a little bit more about yourself and Sparrow Live?
You might be on mute, Fran.
Sorry about that, Craig. I'm checking. Sorry about that.
So I think he's on mute. So while we wait for Fran to get unmuted, so Gary and Nick, I think, is muted as well. So once we get them unmuted, we'll share a little bit more about them. Fran, are you there? I think you're
Hello.
unmuted now.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Can everybody hear me now? Yeah?
Yep.
Well, I'm happy to be here. My name is Fran Rogers. I guess that's pretty straightforward of a name, so you did a good job. And I am one of the co-founders and the CEO of Sparrow Live. We are a platform intended to, I guess you could say, disrupt the classical music industry, an industry that only, is only beat by the Catholic Church and how slow they move. But we're really trying to democratize access to the arts. We are 3.5 months old, so we are very new, but we're growing incredibly quickly. My background, I have worked in arts administration for some of the biggest arts organizations in the nation. And I am actually an opera singer, and one that when this pandemic hit, I lost a bunch of work and pivoted, and an idea that I had for a while in Sparrow Live was born because of the pandemic. So I'm looking forward to telling you more about it as we go.
Thanks, Fran. And Nick, happy to be joined by you as well. Nick, let's learn a little bit more about yourself in Artist Republic.
Yeah, no, 100%. Can you guys hear me all okay?
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, my background was in, music industry, worked a lot in concerts and music marketing around Connecticut, the East Coast, and, really music marketing globally. Discovered a lot of big problems with, how independent music artists get the resources they need and, the management, um, that whole world of it. And really, started to think there's got to be a better way to enable a music artist on the independent side to grow their career without the necessity of signing to a management firm or a record label or a booking agent or any of that stuff. And that's really where Artist Republic came from, was decentralizing the music industry through enabling a music artist to get all the resources they need in one centralized location.
That's great, Nick, and happy to be joined by you. So the first question we have today is, what's happening in the specific segment that your company does business in? And so, for example, Treble, you do a lot of business in the music distribution space. Could you share a little bit more about what's happening in that segment right now and some of the trends that are shaping music distribution currently?
Sure. So the audience is probably going to know that music distribution has firmly moved into the digital domain, and specifically streaming has taken over the world. People are streaming music all over the world, and consumption has gone through the roof because it's very easy to get access to music in the digital domain, right? In the digital world. There are a couple of really important and specific trends that are affecting our own business. One is people are consuming two types of music. They're consuming radio, which is sort of chewing gum for the mind. It's a lean back experience. You listen to the radio to just kind of, calm yourself when you're driving, when you're, maybe exercising or studying. But then there's the other side of the music consumption persona all of us have, and that is passion music that we're extremely passionate about, artists that we're passionate about, and the consumption for that type of music has migrated to the subscription domain. There are companies like Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon and so on, and Google that are doing a really good job of addressing that need. And it would be easy to conclude that Spotify has pretty much solved the problem, has taken over the world, with the passion music consumption. But the truth is that 80% of the music, especially the passion music, is being consumed on a platform that's not even music, it's video, right? So a lot of people don't know that YouTube is actually the biggest music distribution channel on the planet, digital music distribution channel on the planet. They have over 2 billion monthly active users, who are listening to music on a video platform. And there's one very simple reason for that. It's not because YouTube is the best place to listen to music. It's because YouTube is the only legal place you can listen to on-demand music for free. And this creates what the music industry calls a value gap. In other words, most of the consumption happens on YouTube, but almost none of the monetization happens on YouTube. And that's the problem that we're trying to solve for consumers, for rights owners, for artists, and as well as advertisers, right? So Treble is the only on-demand music service that allows users to listen to music offline and off screen. You can't do that on YouTube. And it's a completely mobile service. You don't need a data plan to be able to listen to your passion music on the go, right? So if music is medicine, then Treble is being built as the dispensary, if you will, the place where you get your medicine.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it certainly is. As you listen to music on YouTube, it is a pain to when you shut off your screen, you can't listen to your music anymore. So that there is some obvious pain points there. Fran, you're in the classical music space. So what was happening pre-pandemic and what do you think is happening now?
So, I mean, pre-pandemic, I guess you could say it was pretty much business as usual, organizations put on concerts, put on operas, put on ballets, whatever you might be into, go to, perform. And, now we're dark. If you look at the entertainment industry on the whole, I think especially musicians, 77% of us are completely without work, 100% without work right now. Unfortunately, however you think about politics, it doesn't seem like there's a ton of aid coming in for us like there has been for other countries. And just the way the system is set up, it's tough for individual artists to be able to realize any real kind of, whether it be unemployment stream or anything like that, obviously because they haven't been paying into the insurance system for it. But what we're trying to do is empower musicians to be able to reach their audience, to be able to do so in a way that one creates a niche community of classical music lovers. A lot what you're seeing right now, there's the problem where a lot are taking to YouTube, and they might have an unlisted YouTube live. They might have they might have some other way they put it up, Facebook Live, Instagram. But these incredibly talented artists that pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for their training, and then that's not even taking into account the amount of time that goes into the art form. They're being reduced to what I see as virtual buskers, asking for donations. And in a past role, I was a major gifts officer at a large arts organization. And I know that once you ask for a donation for something that's seen as being value-based, or as if you are getting some benefit for that donation, they just keep going down. It's what we all hope the spike in COVID starts doing soon. But we have no way to get in front of our audience right now. A lot of us barely have a way to get together to be able to collaborate with other artists. So right now we're filling a gap where we make sure that we have a high quality live stream platform that they can sell tickets. They can reach the niche community that are looking for what they're doing, because we all know that there is power in the niche. But then we're also working with artists to help them just learn how to do this. Going forward, when we say we're hoping to, our mission is to democratize classical music, we really mean that. We want to make a direct link between artists and audiences, because in this industry right now, there is a system of middlemen, and especially when we're seeing underrepresentation everywhere of various groups of people, we're hoping to give people a voice and give them a platform to get out there.
Yeah, that's it's amazing to see the world kind of shut down because of the pandemic, and yeah, it gets overlooked that there's a lot of musicians out there that just don't have that platform to connect with their audience. And and you made an interesting point about the middleman, and I think that's a great segue into Artist Republic, because Nick, that's what the Artist Republic is trying to solve, is the middleman in the music industry. So what is Artist Republic doing?
Yeah, no, I mean, completely. And going off of, that point is, we're pretty much, decentralizing and removing the middleman, especially in a time right now in, a pandemic. The last thing anyone should be doing is paying more money out than they need to pay. And I think in a pandemic where a lot of artists themselves are also realizing, like, wow, if I sit at home and focus on my career, I can get a lot done. And that's kind of the same thing that Artist Republic is promoting, is saying, look, we're going to help you provide those resources. And if you're able to, learn them and take the time to, distribute your music yourself, instead of just tossing someone a WAV file and saying, hey, here's my contract. And if you're able to, you know, take the guidance of, you know, automated systems of, you know, if you're at this level of your career, you should be using these tools and you should be doing, you know, these forms of marketing. Um, you know, you are able to do it yourself when you have all the resources presented in front of you. And especially, you know, like I said, in a time nowadays, where, you know, artists do have a little bit more time on their hands, but the budgets are also tighter. Um, you know, really a lot of the public artists are able to sit in an area where they don't have that added expense of paying a manager or, you know, taking money out of, you know, the money they're earning, when really they, you know, they need every single dime of it currently.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Gary, you know, as we talked about Treble and this platform that allows someone to listen to this music offline and also off screen, I think a question that you might get a lot is this platform legal? How does this work? How does something like how does a company like Treble actually make any money off a platform like that?
All right, so there are two very good questions in there. The easy one, of course, it's legal. We have licensing agreements with the three majors, Sony, Universal, Warner, and another 10 or so independent labels, and we're adding new labels to our platform every day. As far as monetization is concerned, look, one of the most valuable companies on the planet is Facebook. How do they monetize? They don't charge $10 a month to anybody to monetize, right? They sell advertising and they sell targeted advertising. And our thesis from the beginning was that our advertising is going to be very, very valuable because we know who the passion consumers are and what they're passionate about. And that's what advertisers want to know. They want to know, for example, you know, who Gary's favorite artist is, and you know that's and what Gary's favorite genre is. And that's very valuable targeting information for them to you know, to sell advertising. So we make our money the same way social media companies make their money. And what we're doing is we're monetizing the business model. We're monetizing the process of searching, previewing, downloading, playlisting, and socially interacting with other, you know, passionate music consumers, and the same way that social media platforms monetize interaction.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, and I think to the audience to understand the difference. Unlike Treble, unlike Spotify, there's no paid subscription. It's all free to the user. Where on Spotify, to get that premium feature, you have to pay that monthly subscription.
That's right, and that's important, by the way, Craig. I mean, we tell through all of our promotional channels, whoever can afford to pay that you know, $120 a year of after-tax money to get the best music in the world should, right? Because the market, the music market, just like the media market in general, for the past 100 years, has had a very robust ad-supported sector as well as a subscription sector, right? So we don't really compete with the subscription services. You know, because we see 2 billion people going to YouTube to listen to music every month. And that tells us that, you know, 2 billion people don't have $10 a month to, you know, get the beautiful ad-free experience that Apple Music or Spotify or any number of these subscription companies have designed, right? And that's the market that we're addressing.
Absolutely. And now, Fran, and talking about Sparrow Live, you know, it's hard enough to be at home during the pandemic, but how do you, for someone that wants to offer a concert from their own home, how do they get set up with running a concert? Can you walk us through that process of helping that classical musician make sure they have the right equipment, make sure the sound quality, all of that's correct? Could you walk us through that?
Yeah, so that's something that's huge for for especially a classical musician, in terms of you want to represent the acoustic in a way that it would be if you were actually having a concert. you know, that's been one of the toughest things. If you don't have the resources of one of the biggest organizations, sometimes it gets tough to find that quality. But what we've found is that with an investment that is not huge, you can get a quality performance that you can then stream out to a wider audience. And there are all sorts of programs out there. You know, I don't know how many people on this call are familiar with OBS that artists can use. We actually have an interface that we can use with artists where, almost like you would send out for this Zoom webinar, we can send out a link, and we can pull in your raw audio, your raw visual, and we actually on our end can you know, we can manipulate it. So if I'm singing in my living room and it is the most dead space in the world as a singer, if there's any musicians on here that know what a Wenger practice room sounds like, it's completely soundproof. You don't want to have a concert in there because it's completely dead. And so we're able to add a tasteful amount of reverb if we need to, or compression, which is, there's two different kinds of compression that we need to talk about, because there's one on the, I guess you could say, recording studio side, that it basically just kind of levels everything out. And then there's on the other side, which is YouTube, which Gary was talking about, compresses everything because they have so much data, and, you know, it saves them money to compress it down so they don't have to pay for as much storage. We actually are able to, you know, utilize I guess just the power of the community, but then also our model to have a better option for artists that is not nearly as compressed. And that unto itself, so we're talking about the bad compression again. I'm sorry, I wish there were two different words for it, but that unto itself is already a huge boon. We don't put in advertisements, you know, at the end of their videos. They're not going to get, you know, you might like watching this and then it's something completely different than actually what they would like to, what the viewer would like to watch. We have a streamlined concert page, so we are able to take everything and really kind of work with artists and get them up without them really needing to know much. If they know how to work their own streaming encoder, we let them do that, but we kind of are there with them every step of the way, and we help them get the microphones that they need. The biggest thing is you need to have a stereo feed, because you need that music coming in to be going out to the audience as if it were coming in their own ears. And if it's mono, it just sounds like we're talking right now instead of an actual music experience. And, you know, Gary was talking about radio versus kind of the music that you're actually focused on and into. And this is what we're providing for a lot of people in the concert experience. So, you know, it requires a small investment. As we capitalize more, we are investing in better equipment. There are studios around that are turning to streaming as well, that a lot of our artists are turning to. So there's a lot of options out there. Is a long answer to your short question.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it is really interesting to see, you know, how much goes into it behind the scenes. It's not an easy process, but and Nick, I want to turn to you. You know, Artist Republic has so many services that they offer to independent artists. Can you explain what some of them are, like this PR hub, this curator hub? How are you getting music distributed to major music networks? Can you walk us through some of that?
Yeah, completely. So there's a lot to Artist Republic. We could probably talk for the next, 30 days just about what it does. And we're only in our first 6 months, so I guarantee you in the next couple months it's just going to be a hellstorm of systems. which is builds an own system in itself of us having to build, AI managers and, these digital bots to actually guide you through Artist Republic. So it, customizes your experience for what you want. But yeah, so really, obviously in a pandemic world, people aren't doing shows. So our show systems are obviously not live. So what we have live right now is a lot of the digital systems. And really what we're focusing on is the marketing side of music. So, the best comparison that I can give of Artist Republic and what it is and what it does, is Artist Republic is kind of, an iPhone of the music industry. Um, before the iPhone, you could text someone, you could call someone, you could listen to music, you could play a game. You couldn't do it all at once, and on one device. And that's kind of what we do. Before Artist Republic, you were not, you could get playlisting submissions, you could distribute your music, you could set up an email campaign, you could, build your own smart links, you can hire a PR agent and get press releases, and you can get all this stuff. But every single one of those services on different website, different pricing plans, different subscription services, different customer service to deal with. And really what we're doing is, it's centralizing all those tools. So as I said, right now, we're focusing on the digital side. So in our distribution system, in our distribution hub, you're able to distribute your music. But then once you distribute your music, it takes you up to that next level of, okay, what are you doing? Now that you've got your song out there, what are you going to do with it? And that's where it really comes into, let's build a press release around it and let's distribute it to dozens of blogs across the nation. Let's submit it to leading curators, to, possibly have the chance to get on different Spotify playlists and, reach new fans. And, let's distribute it through, so many other things. Like we release sticker portals. So like, it's like, hey, build sticker packages, send them out to fans. And that's going to come in more into the merchandising and shows. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a whole plethora of tools. But really that's kind of the idea behind it is right now we're focusing on the marketing and the distribution side, because really that's what we see is the biggest thing right now and the biggest focus that artists need as of, today.
Yeah, and I think it's so important for independent artists to be equipped with those tools because they only can make independent artists only make so much, and if we can find a solution to get more money back in their pockets, that's very valuable to independent artists. So Nick, I want to stay with you. How has COVID-19 impacted your business, and what do you foresee happening post-COVID?
That's a good one. I think I actually pretty sure I got asked that the other day. COVID-19 really hasn't impacted us negatively. If anything, it's probably impacted us beneficially. We've been able to get a lot of top tier talent, mainly because, jobs are in hiring freezes and stuff like that. And obviously us being a startup, not in a hiring freeze, we've been able to get a lot of top tier talent very early. So, that was a big benefit for us. As for the industry and the platform itself, it's majorly benefited us, because a lot of artists are, ditching managers right now. They're ditching their teams to save money. Or a lot of guys are locked up in the rooms. They're like, I was supposed to have an internship this summer and that bombed. And, now I'm going to focus on producing music and, what am I going to do with it? And they're starting to realize, a lot of their music talents, and they're starting to play around with it, a little more. And, we're kind of here to help and say, all right, here's your guidance to take your, career to the next level. With that being said, on the, post-COVID side, like I said, we have a live show system that is extremely robust, and will, completely change how an independent artist manages and, grows their live show presence. And that's obviously completely delayed. But I think we sit in a unique spot where there, post-COVID, you're not going to see the arenas opening up. You're not going to see these huge stadium concerts packing out for, probably a little bit. But, obviously we're all up here in, Northeast, and, obviously we were hit hard in the beginning, but things are starting to reopen. And as I was saying the other day, there's really nothing probably around later this fall, there's nothing really holding people back from, playing their guitar outside at a bar to 20 people. And being in a world of independent artists with, independent live shows, that's something that we're going to capitalize on. So we are actually in a unique space to capitalize on the early reopening of live shows and live events. And so that's something big that we're keeping an eye on and really, prepping ourselves for.
That's yeah, it is really interesting to see how Artist Republic has been impacted by COVID and what your strategy is moving forward post COVID. Gary, I'd like to ask you the same question. How has COVID impacted Treble and what do you foresee happening in the music distribution space post COVID?
So COVID has impacted our industry in very unexpected ways. Specifically for us, COVID has turned out to be a habit former for our users, right? In times of stress, the audience probably knows that people turn to habits that are comforting and that kind of soothe the stressful, life event or situation that they're going through. And we happen to be a purveyor of, music that people are passionate about, right? So our engagement has actually skyrocketed since COVID hit, because people are at home and they're more discriminating about the type of music that they want to listen to, when they're at home, right? When you're driving, when you're commuting, you just, pop open the radio and you can be satisfied by listening to, a particular radio station, right? With COVID, people are sheltered in place and they have options, and they're using the treble option more often, and specifically because it addresses a need that they have right now. So for our business, believe it or not, it's been good. The tragic situation that the COVID is creating for the artists, though, is significant, right? The artists make money by touring, as Nick was saying. That's not easy to do these days, and nobody's going to be filling stadiums in the foreseeable future. Even if the vaccine shows up on the scene in the next 6 months, 8 months, you have to vaccinate a few billion people on the planet before anybody is comfortable, just going to a stadium and sitting, next to sort of, shoulder to shoulder with somebody to enjoy a concert. So what that means is that there's a significant opportunity now to create new business models that help artists monetize. They need to make a living. And we are taking advantage of that opportunity. We are actually developing a multi-screen show with a linear or a television partner of ours in Mexico, and we're going to be testing it in Mexico, and if it works out well, then we're going to bring it to the US. And basically it's a multi-screen experience, right? Where artists, big artists, are going to be going on TV, and there's a very specific format that we've developed where, two artists are going to be going head to head, in a performance. And there are going to be opportunities for that performance to be monetized through the Treble platform and through other platforms as well. This is still kind of under NDA. We're still kind of developing it, but we'll be announcing it in the next 3-4 weeks. So just stay tuned on that front. But to summarize, COVID is turning out to be a habit former. And whatever you're doing during the COVID times, it's very likely that you're going to continue doing the same thing after COVID is a distant memory.
Yeah, I agree. I think COVID has certainly changed the world, and there will be a new normal. So Fran, I want to ask you this question. I know your company wasn't around pre-COVID, so I can't ask you how it's impacted your business because it basically started your business. But what do you foresee Sparrow Live looking like post-COVID?
I see Sparrow Live being a platform that still allows, there are a few, I guess you could say, competitors for us right now. And those competitors are either shifting from their business model, their original business model right now, to be able to survive the pandemic, or they've come about by the pandemic. But the ones that have come about, they cater only solely to what we would think of as the big artists in classical music. So think the size of Yo-Yo Ma or Renee Fleming. And what we are trying to do is break is to free artists from the constraints of a place-based performance. And that is to say that, I mean, even just taking myself as an example, I perform mainly in Boston and New York, and I have a whole group of people that would come to performances but can't, because either geography or accessibility, or in my own situation, I know that I haven't been able to go to performances because I have a 2-year-old daughter who is amazing, but when you can't find a babysitter, it makes it tough to get out. So we're looking at how do we, in classical music especially, there's been this question of how do we make it more accessible? How do we get more people into the art form? And I think it's an important question to ask. But there's never really been a discussion of technology until now. And it's because of a necessity for it. So what we aim to do is to be able to have artists bring more people into their performances. There are amazing performance spaces that are, some are just tiny. There's a church in New York, and I hope you'll excuse me because the exact name is escaping me, but they have a crypt in the bottom of the church that major artists will perform in because the acoustics are so incredible down there, but they can only have 35 people in it at a time. So they sell 35 tickets, but the ability to both bring more people into that concert experience and honestly monetize that concert experience, that is really what we're looking to do after COVID-19. We're also working on some B2B channels and using our platform in terms of a white label option for larger organizations, specifically arts organizations right now, and also some health organizations that want to get the concert experience to their patients even after COVID-19 is over. Because one thing that we all know is that there are immunocompromised people even outside of this pandemic, and there are reasons that people can't go into public even outside of this pandemic. I guess maybe it's because I'm an artist. I'm a little less rosy about our forecast, given the current trends especially in our country right now in the U.S. You know, I sing around, Craig, as you know, I sing for a lot of sports teams. I'm supposed to be singing at a major sporting event at the end of December, which I'm told if it happens, there won't be any fans, most likely. And that's tough to hear when your entire income is based on performing. So that's what we're trying to do right now. And then after that, we're also providing an opportunity for people to monetize even after. And we do provide live ticketing for those who need it as well. We haven't had to take it out of the box yet for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating post-COVID to kind of see that hybrid between like a live show and also being able to attend it virtually. I think that's going to be really interesting to see. So I want to turn to, raising capital. That's obviously vitally important for any startup. And Nick, I want to start with you on this one. You successfully just raised $540K. So I want to talk about what was your experience like raising capital during COVID, because it's such a challenge for many companies.
Yeah, completely. So, I mean, we were a little bit of an anomaly. I mean, we were anomaly in a lucky way. That, you know, we had a very, very strong investment team behind us coming into our, you know, kind of angel seed round-ish thing. And so, you know, for us, raising money wasn't super challenging, so to say. But I mean, I definitely think it is, you know, obviously challenging. Um, I think it's a little bit easier in a pandemic and, you know, where we're at to raise money with angels than it is with VCs. You know, angels are not invested in 15, 30 different companies that they're trying to keep alive right now, most of the time. You know, a lot of the times it's a lot of just high net worth individuals that love your story and, you know, want to be involved. And, you know, especially right now, you know, startups may be a much safer investment than investing in the market. And so with that, you know, to some extent. So with that being said, you know, angels are a much easier route to go to in times like this, where, you know, I know a lot of the VC partners we've been talking to and have been, you know, staying close with, you know, they're handling right now just keeping the companies that they're already invested in alive. So they're not even thinking about investing in other companies right now. So, you know, that's kind of my experience and my advice from it. And yeah, I mean, for us, we closed our round in 3 weeks. So it was definitely a anomaly for funding.
Yeah, that's a very quick turnaround. Gary, is Treble currently trying to raise capital? What's Treble's experience like right now with raising capital?
So our experience is, you know, similar to Nick's. The investors that supported us in our Series A continue to invest in the company because they see an opportunity to, you know, double or triple down on a company that is going to come out the other end of this, you know, COVID situation, you know, stronger and with an excellent product, you know, to address the needs of, you know, this mass market that we've been talking about. But we haven't stopped talking to the venture investors, right? The venture investors typically like technical risk, like taking technical risk. They even like taking execution risk. What they don't like taking is market risk, right? And then what COVID has done is, you know, it's kind of introduced an unacceptable level of market risk into a lot of the equations, their decision equation. But, you know, they still have to invest. You know, we're talking to some of the biggest venture capital firms in the world, and they're keeping their powder dry. And we think that they're going to start opening their purses like in Q4 of this year, you know, and so for that reason, we are still pitching to them as if we're raising money, understanding full well that this is a good time for us to develop a relationship with them. This is a good time for them to kind of look under the covers a little bit, to learn about our business as much as possible, such that when Q4, Q1 rolls around and there's going to be this pent up demand to deploy capital, they will have essentially completed the diligence process. So I would encourage every entrepreneur to continue talking to VCs, because, you know, what's going to happen in the next 3-4 months is they're going to have a huge need to invest, and they're going to invest in companies that they've gotten to know through the tough times, you know, which would provide the basis for them to build this partnership over the long term.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, I think there were so many great companies that came out of the last financial crisis in 2008 that were very successful. So I do think there will be some very strong companies that come out of this as well.
That's right.
So with that, I mean, I know we got about 10 to 12 minutes left. So I want to start opening it up to some audience Q&A. We've seen some great questions come in, but again, if you have any questions, please submit them through the Q&A or chat boxes below, and be sure to get to them. So first off, and this was a really interesting question, was the role of data. We live in a world where data is so important, and I think all of your businesses are collecting data, and it is a potential way to a great monetization tool. So Nick, I'd like to maybe start with you on that question. What's the role of data like in your company, and what do you foresee that how do you foresee your company potentially monetizing that data?
Yeah. Yeah. So data with us is huge. You know, we kind of fit in that classic tech company, mold of, we're not a blank, we're a data company. And I think that's across the board with a lot of tech companies. You can kind of, fill in that blank. We're not a marketplace. We're a data company. We're not an app. We're a data company. And that's kind of the same thing with us. We enable someone to manage themselves by, collecting, utilizing, and manipulating the most data possible to enable someone to have the resources they need. Being able to give an independent artist insights and data that they would normally hire a manager or a assistant or anything to hours to do. Data provided to the point of, where should I host a show? Data provided to the point of when's the best time to release my song. All that data is very important to an independent artist's life cycle and career when they're trying to do that by themselves. Because those are data points that these massive labels and conglomerates of music industry, companies have readily at their hands, because they have people mining and, manipulating and using and, relaying that data. And that's the same data that we're chasing. We're just chasing it in a different manner and using it in a more efficient way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there for Artists Republic. Fran, I'd like to ask you that question, and the role of data in your company, and how do you foresee that being a monetization tool for Sparrow Live?
Yeah. So with us, I mean, we're still so early on too that I'd be lying to you if I said we weren't obviously figuring out kind of everything right now. But for us, the biggest role of data is, one, being able to market concerts that are out there, being able to monetize the data that we have, because we can, if it's an artist or an organization that wants to send a marketing email to a group of people in our niche, which is the other, I guess, power of our data in terms of, classical music on its own. But if somebody wants to send something to people who love Baroque music, we can do that. And that is going to be the power of what we're doing. And we are still on the early stages of gathering that data. We've been growing exponentially, but there are a lot of ways that we will be, and that's kind of where we are right now.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think it will be such a powerful tool. And Gary, I'd like to ask you the same question.
We think in the next 3 to 4 years, Treble is going to be a data company alongside being a music distribution or digital media distribution company. Data is king, right? So with data, you know how to customize services for your users, and which increases engagement. It increases, retention. And, but when you have increased retention and engagement based on personalization driven by data, then the monetization opportunities multiply accordingly. There are other data-driven monetization opportunities that we're going to be deploying in the next 18 to 24 months. Specifically, we're working on artist services, right? It's really important for artists to know who their super fans are, and we know who the artist super fans are, because in our system, you have to download the song to be able to listen to it. That's part of the monetization model. And no one is going to download music by an artist that they're not absolutely and totally passionate about, right? So having this, database that provides the superfan data is really, really valuable. And obviously we haven't started monetizing it yet, but we will at some point. And data is also important for advertiser services, right? The advertisers want to know who the classical music fans are compared to hip hop fans, right? Because it's likely that if you're a classical music fan, that you're a good target for Toyota to advertise their, highly efficient cars. And if you're a hip hop fan, then, maybe the advertiser wants to advertise some other type of vehicle, right? So music, because it's so personal, and musical data can reveal a lot of sort of consumer preferences that are not easily encapsulated in other types of data. And right now, we are aggregating this type of data, and then we'll figure out how to monetize it in a way that, that our users, the artists, and the advertisers are comfortable with.
That's great. That's great, Gary. So another question that we have is, how do you recommend finding these either angels or VCs? Is it code calling? Is it emails? And maybe Gary, you could take the first stab at that question.
How do we identify angel investors? It was the question.
Yeah, like how do you, you talk about that, establishing that relationship. How do you do that? If someone's looking to raise capital, if they're in a business right now, how are they starting those relationships? What do you recommend?
Okay, so if you're raising angel capital, there are some very well-established angel networks that I would encourage any budding entrepreneur to visit with. And now you can visit with them virtually, through these types of Zoom calls, right? There's Golden Seeds, there's the Tech Coast Angels, there's the Pasadena Angels. There's a very robust angel network in Connecticut. And, you can contact these different angel organizations just by going through, their leadership there. It's fairly straightforward, actually, to do that. If you're coming from a university, certainly use the university network to connect with angel investors. As far as VCs are concerned, they're the VCs are specialists, right? So they invest in very specific types of businesses. And that requires a little bit more, let's just say, creative approach to identify the VCs that might be interested in your industry, in your business. But again, it's all about networking, guys. It's all about networking, right? It's establishing, one-on-one relationships so you can tell the story about your company. I mean, part of the reason, part of what, Fran and Nick and I are doing today is talking about our businesses, right? So this is how you, get the word out there to angel investors as well as VCs.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think it's so important to work on that relationship. I mean, just speaking from Connecticut Innovations, I mean, we are the VC arm for the state of Connecticut. It's it's hard with cold calling or code emails. It's very unlikely to get through it. If you know someone at the firm or you have that established relationship, it does go a long way. So with that, I mean, we're really coming up here in the last minute and a half. So one last thing I'd like to maybe ask here is how can our audience get in touch with Gary, Fran, and Nick if they'd like to follow up? Where can they kind of find you, learn more about your companies? Where can they find you? Let's start with Fran.
So you can find us at sparrowlive.com, and that's exactly as it's written out on the screen, Sparrow. Feel free to email me if anybody has any questions. It's just fran@sparrowlive.com. And yeah, there's a good slate of performances up right now, and we'd love to have everybody come check us out if folks are interested in hearing more about kind of where we're going and where we're headed and how our business model is coming into view. I'd love to talk with you. And if anybody has any advice, please reach out. We're very early on, so I'd love to hear it.
Thanks, Fran. Yeah, we're looking forward to tracking the progress of Sparrow Live. Nick, where can we learn more about? How can we get connected with you and learn more about Artist Republic?
Yeah, no, 100%. So obviously, it's artistrepublic.com and it's Artist Republic with a K. Um, and really, connect with me on LinkedIn. Probably copy down my last name now because it's, Italian as hell. But yeah, Nick Championi, pretty much accept everybody on LinkedIn. I'm always down to talk to people and, schedule meetings, whatever you need. Yeah, shoot me a connection on LinkedIn, shoot me a message. I'm always here to, talk and hang out and get to know people.
Good. Thanks, Nick and Gary. And how about yourself?
Well, the best way to learn about Treble.io is or Treble in general, is to use it. So if you have an iPhone or an Android device, you go to the App Store, download it, and you get a feel for it. You'll see what we're building. As far as contacting me, it's fairly straightforward. Gary at Treble.io, and Treble is spelled rebel with a T. And you can also, hit me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with anyone that has any specific questions about the industry, the company, and what we're doing.
Thanks, Gary. Well, we're pretty much out of time. Again, apologize for some earlier technical difficulties, but I'd like to thank all of our audience for attending, and also thank you so much to our panelists for joining us today. So thank you so much, Gary, Fran, and Nick, and looking forward to tracking your progress. As far as this webinar is concerned, this is recorded, so we will hopefully share that recording with you soon. We are going to be sending a survey out, so we'd love some feedback and also recommendations on future webinar topics as well. We'd love to host some more of these in the future, so looking forward to that. So with that, I'd like to again thank you again to everyone, and looking forward to more events in the future. Take care.
Thank you for pulling this together, Craig.
It's been great.